Well, hello. This is the third episode, and this is Matty.
Hi, I'm Matty. I'm Matty Taylor.
Well, the title of the series, of course, is Are You an Artist? So, Matty, are you an artist?
Yes. And I feel like it's only been in recent years that I noticed just how much I can say that with my chest, and I know that that's not such an easy question for a lot of people, and it wasn't for me for a really long time, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah, the thing that matters most to me in life is creating and consuming art.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So you said it was more recently that you started really calling yourself an artist?
I think it was more recently I just kind of took stock of how much I say that with my chest, that I am an artist and I don't need to think about it. And I think that was part of my unending identity crisis that is my life at one point in time, where I was yeah, I don't think I'm an artist, I'm not because I'm not doing what I want to be doing the way I want to be doing it, But,
okay. That's a good point, though. That's interesting so you weren't comfortable calling yourself an artist right away because you weren't really creating the art that you wanted to create.
Yeah, I think I'm happy that I came to a point where I was comfortable enough to say, yeah, I'm definitely an artist, because what do I live for? I think the same thing everybody lives for, which is art and love. These two things, everything in life worth living for can be classified under these two things, and I think I live my life kind of according to that. And so yeah, absolutely, I'm an artist. I think most people are to some degree.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think to be an artist is to be a creator, and that's literally what everybody's doing.
Exactly.
Creating LA.
Yeah. Art is so much, it's cooking, it's
Absolutely.
it's speaking,
Yeah, communication is an art. And then I'm curious too, because was there a moment that you were like, oh, I can call myself an artist now, or was it more gradual? It sounded like you were saying that you kind of realized at one point that you were comfortable calling yourself an artist.
Yeah, I think there was probably a moment where subconsciously I kind of flipped that switch, and that was when I was 17. I was all of my life growing up, I knew that I needed some kind of artistic outlet, because art had always been the only thing that could kind of make me feel like the second heaviest thing in the room, and I felt like I was just kind of had no means of expression that I felt confident or happy with my capacity in, because I tried painting and I tried singing and everything, and I definitely don't now. It's better now, but even when I was really young, I didn't have a traditionally good singing voice, I know I'm in a band now and everything, but yeah, growing up I was just what's my thing, and I felt like I was gonna explode, and then in junior year of high school I discovered photography, and it was introduced to me by a really talented person that was doing really conceptual work with photography and just kind of creating these crazy, fantastical masterpieces out of everyday pictures and everything through Photoshop and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh my god, I'm in love with this. This is the coolest shit ever. Yeah, this feels like I can really dig into recesses of my mind and paint a picture with it. It's a medium I can get behind. And that was probably when I discovered photography. That was when I kind of realized I have a lot to contribute, to this, and in that sense I'm finally an artist, I guess.
Right, so you started with photography, and that was around, you said, your junior year of high school?
Yeah, when I was new. 17-ish.
Yeah. And so how did you, how did you work with photography when you first started? What kind of supplies did you have, or resources? Where did you do your shoots?
Resources? My best resource at that point in time was my community, really, because, the person that introduced me to it was my partner at the time, my first high school relationship, and I would take photos on my phone and I would model for my own stuff, and this would lead into years of like, I'm buying my own professional equipment and doing photography professionally and everything. But it all started with just kind of taking photos on like a really bad phone camera and like kind of going over the conceptual ideas with my partner at that time, or a really good friend of mine who lived in Texas, whom I would send my photos and I'd be like, what did you do with this?
Right.
And shout out Hayden Caperton, I love you. One of the most talented photographers I've ever met in my life, and they picked it up after I did, and we kind of came to understand the craft together, and watching how crazy his progression got and how his mind like works in photography and everything. It was always very inspirational. So shout out.
That's awesome. So, for your photography, do you like take pictures of what you see, or do you set up a scene?
Like, yeah, it was very like highly composed. Like I knew exactly what I was wanting to see through the shutter before I ever like found a location to shoot them at. Or
Okay.
it was a lot like that. It all started with like location hunting, and I would every now and again. I used to explore a lot of abandoned spaces and everything growing up in the UP too, because they kind of like fit that sort of aesthetic in my mind, and I would find spots and this is perfect for this, and
Right.
and it's lining up. How many people do I need to help me with this? Like I need a model for this because I need to take the picture.
Right.
But for a long time I modeled for a lot of my own stuff, more than half of it probably, and it was a game of finding the angle, setting it against like whatever stone or whatever. I'm looking at it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Dang. And so you're saying you would have like an idea, a vision of what you wanted to take a picture of before you ever went and like set up the shot?
Yeah. It was pretty clear in my head what it was that I wanted to see, and I would just do it over and over and set it up exactly how I needed it until I really have that picture, I guess,
Right. So when you have that vision in your head, do you ever like take notes on it or like do a little sketch, or do you just keep it in your head and like go from there?
This is all speaking like a much younger Matty, who's like very invested in it. Yeah, I had notebooks and like thought a lot about the angles and everything, and like would revisit sometimes like shoots and be like, this was perfect, but like except for this one thing in the background or whatever, it just and it takes away the timelessness of it or some shit like
Right. It sounds like you're very like disciplined and analytical about the work you're creating, though.
I feel like, yeah, in ways I definitely am with photography. I feel like I definitely am, because that's one of the things I love most about photography, and why now it's kind of current place in my life. It's just exclusively film photography. That's like kind of at the end of my experience with digital photography, doing it for a living. It was just kind of draining me, because I was taking, you go on these photo shoots and you're doing like photos with groom and bride to be, and they're like, look at this Etsy post, can you emulate this photo perfectly? And you hear that so many times in a week, and you're like, yeah, that's what a moment in time is. Yeah, I can perfectly emulate that. Yeah. And I kind of fell out of love with photography for a minute because of monetizing it and losing all that creative control over with my relationship with photography. And there came a time where I sold all my digital equipment and for rent money, and I saved $100 of it for my first film camera. And I kind of restarted it all, because I was like, I'm not editing any of these like at all. I just love the way it comes out because of the medium itself.
That's awesome. Okay,
So nowadays it's a lot less like it was.
Right. Okay, I have a few questions then about like how it's progressed, but I'm curious. So, how did you get into doing it for money, professionally, monetizing it?
It all just kind of like after high school, I was like, I knew I wanted like a secondary form of income of some sort, that was fulfilling to me, and this was all before I had ever had any kind of experience of doing like any of my artistic mediums for money. So I was excited about it. What I did, I made my Facebook like account for my photography. What was it called? I can't remember what it was called, but I thought it was something slick, something cute, something northern, which people love,
Okay. Yeah.
because I grew up in the Eastern UP, and the other photographers in my area at that time, they were charging like, a few hundreds of dollars for like so many hours, so many wardrobe changes, whatever. It was so like, I'm from the second poorest county in Michigan, and like families don't typically have that kind of money, So what I had started doing was, I started by asking like, hey, some friends of mine I went to high school with, they were a couple. They were a really cute couple, And they were in my grade, and I'd ask them, I was like, hey, would you guys be down for like a couple's shoot, and I won't charge you anything for it, and you'll just get a bunch of really cute photos of yourself. And they spent like all day with me, like exploring our hometown and everything. And it was cool because it was nice to bond with them, and I learned so much on that shoot alone, just like my first big, like, having models kind of at my, like doing what I tell them to. It was my first time working with modeling people, it's, which like became so big in my work, like later on, not so much nowadays, but like.
Okay. So I guess then, still talking about that era of time with your photography, there was a large part of it where you're kind of directing the shoot.
Yeah.
So it's not just setting up the camera, pressing the button, but telling people what to do, directing people.
Yeah.
How is that?
I loved it. I love it. It teaches you a lot about like reading people, reading body language, like when a person's uncomfortable, a camera can't lie about that, and there's nothing that like, you see so much like stuff in the oversaturated medium that is photography nowadays on Instagram and everything, where you see like people modeling and like you can read discomfort on a lot of people, and comforts your smaller communities of photography. I could feel if I saw that in my own work, and I want that. So something that's always been really important, and like working with other people is like building a rapport with people I'm working with, that's when you get your best work, you're most comfortable, like vulnerable, like work.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that, because that's definitely, for me, I mean, again, this is only my third episode, so I'm still getting into the groove, but learning how to do it. But I know, like, a lot of people that I've asked, like, could I interview you? They'll say something to the effect of, like, oh, I'd be nervous about that or whatever. And I always feel like, well, it's my job as an interviewer to make it a conversation, to make it comfortable. So
that's huge.
Yeah. And it's just really cool how art is not just like, take a picture of whatever piece, but there's a lot of the aspects of it, just all kinds of fun.
Which kind of like brings me to like why we're here in this kind of noisy, like environment.
Yeah.
Like community to me is like everything, and I feel like I'm so far away from home, and I feel like I do. When I just wake up and I feel this like sense of like this like rush in my chest, like I kind of got to get up and get running out and go somewhere where I can hear this background, of like other people and everything. I always grew up in a house full of relatives of mine, and there'd be like 2-3 of them in the kitchen drinking coffee, laughing, by the time I'd wake up, and that feels very much what I'm used to, what I'm seeking out, and that's why I come to like places like here, Cafe Live, and Ypsilanti, Michigan. It's one of the better pistachio lattes I've had. So I can just come here and like feel like there's a sense of community, and this is where I've read a lot of my better music and stuff like that.
Yeah, I want to get into that, because I know you said that Cafe Live is important to you for writing music. I have one more question about
we're just kind of
well, it's kind of, but you said that you stopped doing digital photography, and then you got your film camera.
Yeah.
Around what time is that?
That was, I got my first film camera, it would have been like 2018, 2019, after I had like just moved to Ann Arbor. Not, I mean, I probably had, yeah, I had my digital camera for like probably 6 months here in Ann Arbor. Did I put in work when I first came here? I'm gonna work my way to that to answer a question I didn't answer from before.
Okay.
I did that free photo shoot for those friends of mine. Used that as advertising, like, hey, what you can was my advertising. So of course I got all the business for like engagements, people who asked about weddings, there's, all these different opportunities came my way because I was the only one that wasn't like, hey, here's like a bill that like nobody in the area can really afford doing stuff. Like, oh, you can afford paying what you can, so that's how that took off for me for a while in like the area I grew up in. And then I did that for some years before I moved to Ann Arbor in 2017 and end of 2017 September, and I did do it for like a living because there's like a lot of photographers here and everybody here can afford the photographers and stuff, but I kept doing it for fun and I got a lot more artsy with it, and like that was when I was really working with a lot of models because it was my first time being in an area with like a lot of people my age,
Right.
and so I was interacting with like students, who are like, oh, I'd do that for free just to have like photos of myself like that, a lot of art students and shit like that. That was a really transformative time for me in learning how to do like
Keep that.
how to like really work with other people, like maintain both like comfort as well as like creative expression,
Yeah. So, you said that you did take like a lot of notes and stuff when you're doing the digital photography and you're analytical about it. Did you continue being that analytical once you moved to film camera?
Once I moved to the film camera, yeah, I got that film camera in like 2017, 2018, and like that was when, I feel like at first I was very like almost to like, it was a degree I had never experienced. I was anxious at that point because like I had never had the type of money to be shooting in just film, because it costs money for the film, it costs money to develop the film, and you only get so many shots per roll, and you don't get to see them like what they look. I was used to, I learned on my Canon TSI 3, I think it was, and this camera like lets you see on a screen. You can adjust like all the screen. I mean the shutter speed,
Right.
and ISO sensitivity. You can adjust all these things and see the final product on the screen and know what you were getting before you took the photo, and then you could just like rapid fire like 300 of them and pick through all the little minor differences and everything.
Right.
To go from that to not being able to know at all what you're getting, when you take a photo, one of like 32 for a shoot, it's like you get so much more cautious. And me, I was anxious about it. But when I got back my first roll of film and like they all came out, and like I fell in love with the way it looked, and film really. Does this answer the question? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. Well, I was asking if you were still like as analytical, like taking notes and dissecting that. And it sounds like you were, but in a different way.
I was, not comfortably, but after that, I think that was when I really chilled out, and I got to a point where I was a lot more like, drive by taking pictures, like it's just fun, and I was always happy with how stuff came out looking, and I was really confident, like after my first few rolls of like my ability to manage light with it, so I think that was the first time with like photography I'd gotten a lot less like analytical and kind of like crazed mind with it. Like nowadays my whole love for photography is deeply rooted in the interest in the art of a really good, what's it called, candid.
Yeah.
I feel like really good candids to me are like a slept on epitome of really good photography skills, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like the film camera being such a different medium from the digital photography, like it kind of forced you to look at your art from a different perspective
Yeah.
and to just have a different process around it. And then, it's not a perfect analogy. It's not like a perfect one-to-one analogy, but it reminds me like oil painting versus acrylic painting.
Yeah.
Like it's still a painting, but you have to work with it differently.
Yeah. Totally different discipline, yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like a lot changed for you in your art when you moved to Ann Arbor.
Mm-hmm.
So were you in your hometown up until you moved to Ann Arbor?
Yeah, well, you know, kind of all around. There's a lot of moving around the Eastern Upper Peninsula. But yeah, like I basically lived in the Eastern Upper Peninsula until I was, yeah, 19? No, 20. I turned 20 shortly before I moved to Ann Arbor.
Why did you move to Ann Arbor?
You know, everybody where I was from that was my age, like in one way or another, they were just trying to figure out how they could get out of like where we grew up. You know, it's a really small, really, low opportunity kind of place. You know, I feel like when you're younger and you grow up in a place that isn't like designed with like fun for the youth in mind, or resources for the youth in mind, a lot of kids chose to do really good in school so they could go to uni, I was pet sitting with a partner of mine that lived in Jackson at the time, and we were walking the dog down Main Street, and I was picking up an application from every business that we stopped that we walked by, and I didn't know where I wanted to go. I just knew I wanted to leave, somehow. Then this restaurant on Main Street in Ann Arbor hired me on the spot. They were like, "Can you start this weekend?" It's like a few days away. Like, what? Dang. I came home. I quit my job of 13 years and packed my whole life up in my little Sonata. Yeah. Came all the way down here and I slept on a mattress on the floor and my cousin's walk-in for for like $300 a month. Like that.
Damn.
Yeah. And I eventually had to come back to the UP for like a little stint after like 9 months in Ann Arbor because I was like, I can't afford this place. I was making less than like $100 a paycheck sometimes, Yeah, when you're not, depending on your position, if you're doing like busing or, food running, like, gosh, you can't make enough for Ann Arbor sometimes,
Right. So then at some point you came to Ypsilanti instead.
I came to Ypsilanti 2 years ago, yeah, after like 7 years in Ann Arbor. That really kind of like made me weird socially. That really, Ann Arbor stunted me as a human, yeah.
Ann Arbor's a little weird.
Ann Arbor's really worth listening. Now it's like working its way into Ypsilanti.
Oh, yeah.
But, hey, Ypsilanti is just like undone so much of that. I've really found that sense of community that I found myself kind of starved for, when I was living in Ann Arbor. Here, it's like, I feel like it's hard to make friends there, whereas like here, it's impossible to drink alone or to fill up or talk and people or go for a walk in the park. And you were saying earlier, if it gets small, it's pretty quick. But like, I love it.
I mean, it's beautiful how small it is too. Because again, you can walk down the street, go to any business anywhere, and like see someone you know or make a new friend. You don't really have a choice in it.
No, you don't. And I'm waiting for that to become a bad thing, but I'm enjoying it so far. Anytime the weather's sunny and nice, like me and my friends were like, all right, you guys want to walk to the park and see everybody we know?
That's awesome. So you moved to Ypsilanti like 2 years ago. Why did you decide to move to Ypsilanti?
I had, this is like the polar opposite of everybody's experience, and I feel like a lot of people move here because it's more affordable, and that's definitely the case. I was in the one unique situation in Ann Arbor where like I was just because of like who all was living in the house, yada yada. The circumstances. It was a really cheap spot in Ann Arbor for like 400 or something like that, which is unheard of for those that don't know. I had 2 roommates, but that said, then I moved here and just couldn't live alone, kind of, you know. So this is the first place within like a price point I'd set for myself. It was like, okay, I need to be able to live alone, and that definitely ties into my life as like a portrait artist.
Get that.
But yeah, I moved here just to kind of, you know, and also, I had hung out here a few times before that, and I fell in love with the music scene and just the art scene in general. And I had done some poetry readings here, and I was like, Ypsilanti offers a little bit of something for everybody.
Yeah,
Something I came here understanding, you know.
yeah. So I know Cafe Live, where we're at right now, you said is important to you in your writing.
Yeah.
You write music and poetry.
You know, poetry less so nowadays. I definitely still do, you know, like it's something I feel like I gotta intentionally do because it doesn't come as like a natural outlet, you know, for me. It's definitely more of like a discipline relationship. But
Poetry is more disciplined for you.
yeah, than like writing music, I feel like. I would say writing music for me feels very much like it can be more of like a release valve, you know, just kind of letting things come out organically and
So I would guess that you've been writing poetry and music before you discovered Cafe Live.
yeah. I was like I wasn't even in high school. I think I was in like 6th, 7th grade, like the first time I'd written like a short story for the school project that like the school little trouble kid, you know. I didn't get rewards for shit, but they gave me a reward for like the story I wrote about the Iditarod, and I didn't know nothing about the Iditarod like before I started writing it. And reading like books about it and stuff. But
What is that?
the Iditarod, it's this big like sled dog race in Alaska from Anchorage to Nome. Don't get mad at me. I believe that's it. But
Right.
yeah, and it's just like a crazy large like endurance, you know, like survival kind of like sled dog race in Alaska. And I had written a short story from the perspective of like a musher.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was a short story. You said you mostly write poetry and music. Do you still write short stories, or did that like evolve into poetry and music over time?
Yeah, I feel like with writing, that's probably like that's probably like where I have the most skill as like a artist in general is writing, and I've really dabbled in all the different kind of mediums of writing, I feel like, at this point. And yeah, you know, from time to time, you know, some stories will come to me. I got some like dream projects, you know. Once the war plans stop, you know, maybe I'll write some novels, some short story collections.
Right. So then, why is Cafe Live important to you in your life?
You know, it just kind of serves as like I live like down the road from here, and my bestie like lives pretty close to here, so I run into them a lot. My other bestie lives right next door. Like I got a lot of community in this immediate area, and like I run into them a lot when I come here, and even when I don't, you know, like. This gives me that kind of peace, you know, background, you know, I was talking about, like, growing up, like, I would wake up and I'd always hear like, the women in my family, like, laughing in the kitchen on, like, their second pot of coffee already, you know, and that kind of makes that, like, anxiety I wake up with go away, you know, like this stuff like people laughing, you know, people talking and stuff, and it makes me feel more comfortable, like I can kind of tune out and really listen to myself and like do my, you know, listening to, I don't own headphones, I haven't in a few months, but you know, listening to the music and then like doing my moody, writer at the cafe thing.
Right. So making music. When did you start making music?
I started I knew that music. I knew that I wanted to be like a metal front person. I knew that I wanted to write metal music and do that since I was 15. Yeah, I was 15, and it was I think Bring Me the Horizon album or something. I think it was a Bring Me the Horizon. I had a handful of CDs that I had gotten my hands on that I was listening to in the car back at that time, and I had discovered I had never been a great singer at that time, like I had said, but I had discovered that I was pretty good at screaming and doing that kind of shit. So I got my hands on these CDs, and that was when it all started 12 years ago. Yeah.
So it's always kind of been metal screaming.
Yeah, for me, I write I've written in nearly every genre is my thing. I really do like to try and challenge myself as a writer in every aspect, including songwriting. And I got in COVID when that first come to the States, and when I was locked down, it was 10 days or something. I was in quarantine. I was I'm gonna write 10 songs, and I did.
Oh, that's awesome.
It jumped all over from genre to genre. I never know what kind of project I'm gonna end up in, but I think it's fun to try and push yourself as a writer and see what you can do, And so, but as far as what I've actually gotten to kind of materialize and publish, and put out there into the world, it's been metal and emo music,
Right?
Which I think is pretty akin to a lot of the stuff I write, a lot of the subject matter and my musical expressions.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, personally, when I was 15, 14, 15, 16,
Yeah.
I was going to a lot of metal shows and stuff with my friends, because my friends wanted to go to the metal shows. It's never really been my genre. I enjoyed going to the shows, but I don't listen to screamo music or metal on my own time.
That's
I have an appreciation for it, but I think it is one of those genres or styles of vocalization that can be a little hard for people to understand.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about that draws you in?
It does that thing. I said this earlier. I want to be quoted for this forever, but metal music is this thing that makes me feel the second heaviest thing in the room.
Yeah, you said that. I skipped over it a little bit, but I wanted to ask you to elaborate on what that means.
Right, and this isn't exclusive to metal. This is something I've kind of considered with just. I think it's an artist's duty to reflect the times. I'm quoting Nina Simone, Dr. Nina Simone there, and I think that's very true. I think you need to be honest in your work with the state of things, the state of your own life, and in that sense I think there's a lot of things that are inherently true about art, and I think it's inherently true that real proper expressions are kind of political in today's time, because we're all kind of affected by that. There's a lot of things that are inherent about art nowadays, and for me I've always just kind of art's been kind of my way to tackle all the emotions surrounding just the circumstances of my life growing up, and the subject matter can be really dark, because that's, I think I said before that music feels kind of a valve, steam flooding off, real raw, really, truthfully, and that's how performance is a metal music feels for me. It's an opportunity to be celebrated in your righteous rage, and everything. I think music is always it was Blue October was the first music I had heard that was just, it tackled these topics, that like felt really underrepresented at that time, you know, because even today, like mental health like still has such a long journey to be where it's at, you know, in terms of like nationwide like availability of resources and like destigmatization and all that, you know. At that time, you know, like, and when I was just a kid, you know, like when I heard Blue October writing music about like wanting to commit suicide and like all these like just really dark, you know, things, like that was the first time I had ever felt like the second heaviest thing in the room, aside from like this music, you know, that's like making me feel seen for the first time. And I think representation, you know, if you're honest, you know, with like the state of things, you know, if your art reflects the times, I feel like it's going to resonate with everybody else, you know, because the honest truth of it is like no matter where you sit at on like a political or class spectrum, you know, like if you're honest with the times, people will see that. That's how this hit me, you know, this person who like has like such a similar background to me with their mental health and their experiences like within those systems, and I felt that and I was like, this is what I want to do with art more than anything, because I just want to make people feel seen. I want to tackle things that people aren't tackling, you know. And now everything's been done, but yeah, I just want to make people feel like a fucking living, basically.
Oh, nobody's done it in your voice.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah.
So I know with your photography, you said that you usually have a vision and an idea in your head before you went to the canvas. Is your writing and making music similar or dissimilar? Do you have an idea in your head before you sit down, or you said it's more like an outlet?
Yeah, you know, I definitely like performance. I definitely have like a whole concert like choreographed in my mind sometimes, but like with writing, I found that was like a mistake I was making for myself. You know, I think it's different for everybody. But I found that I needed to stop kind of like creating this mold that that the project had to fit, because you know I would be like, here's what I want the song to be, instead of like, you know, here's what the song is, you know.
Right.
And like I can never quite fill that mold satisfyingly, you know, because like when you're battling with learning and growing with your medium and everything, which, you know, I think all artists constantly are. I think we're gonna constantly battle with our, you know, with where we want to be as an artist and where we're at currently with our skill and everything. Like you're never, I mean, maybe you will, you know, but like it's a lot harder to just fill this like mold that you create for yourself, at least for me it is, you know.
Right, I mean, it sounds like a balance between discipline and creativity.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, discipline and creativity.
Yeah, but I mean, that all makes sense, because you're saying like honesty and vulnerability is really important in your work with writing music. And honestly, like you were saying that with film photography, you can lean more into candidates.
Yeah,
and that
nowadays
honestly seems a little similar too.
Yeah.
Like your writing is also a candid.
Yeah, it feels that way. Yeah, I mean, like nowadays, like with my current, it's been a little bit right now, like at this current point, because I've been with the band now for a year in July, and like our whole kind of writing process and loss of life really centers around like the guitar riffs and everything, like and that's just kind of how we write stuff. So, and that's been a new experience for me, is trying to learn how to write within that like mold that is like sent to me, you know, of like and like sometimes deciphering between like, is this like a chorus or a verse, or like what is this, you know, like working from there. So that's been new. So like I'm kind of hoping my brain can go back to like block mode, you know, to write kind of stuff, but because I've got like loads of stuff like written for like a solo project I want to do, and like I've got all kinds of like people I want to collaborate with and experiment with, you know, like, but that said, like, yeah, it's been an interesting challenge, like learning how to write within that is kind of like a mold you have to fit in a way, you know.
Or found it.
Yeah, yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, how did your band come together? How was that process?
You know, it was like
'Cause I remember before you had your band and we would run into each other.
I know.
I just remember all the time you're like, maybe music.
And then the next time you see me, like, we got an EP coming out.
Yeah, I was like, you're playing a ball pigs.
I know. It's been a crazy year. It's been a medical year. You're right. Shoot, yeah, we didn't meet 2 years ago. Yeah, that would have been
Like 3, I think.
Yeah, it well, because like the band's going on a year. No, I keep thinking of like the first show anniversary, which came way later than after we first met. Yeah, you're right. But
I remembered where we met. It was at a house show. It was the September Fest. It was the last day of September Fest.
where was that at?
Someone's house, someone's backyard.
I got you. Oh,
One of the house is one of the bands that just played around.
did they have the bonfire?
Yeah.
That was Bobby's. The atrium.
No, wait, that wasn't Bobby.
No.
No.
Oh wait, Brian's.
But yeah.
Maybe. I think so. Maybe.
Anyway.
Sorry. But yeah, no, it's been it's been a crazy year. What was the question at first? How we came to meet, like me and the guys.
I was digressing. My question was, how did your band come together?
Yeah, we that really kind of was fated, that whole period of how we came together and like our first show came together, and everything's been very. So we met because a good musician friend of mine in town here, I had expressed that I was for years trying to find people that were interested in doing like a metal project, and they had just thought of it at one point, like, oh wait, I have a good friend, who's like them and like they're like a 3-piece at this point, and they've got like all these demos that they've been sitting on for a while, and I was like, oh, do you want to vocals? Okay, sure. I got in contact with them, and I was honestly. Alright, like I'm sharing this for the first time. I was like, the job was like mine the first time. I had like sent some videos of like some old vocal covers I had done, like driving around in my car. I had sent those to Chase, the guitarist, and he was like, yo, that's really sick. Like, you got the job. He's like, if you can write vocals, if you can write lyrics and stuff. And
Nice.
I'm pretty proud of my lyric writing and stuff. And this has just been my. Him and I, we met, and then eventually, like, we all finally got the time to get together and jam, and we were like, yo, that's good. I went from, like, not really ever writing outside of, like, my own imagination to, like, I had, like, all these demos sent to me, like, immediately that they were just like, here are the songs, like, write the lyrics and what they're about and all that.
Yeah.
Never done this before, but I like hopped to it. Like I got obsessed with it, and I just tried to write. Like most of those will be on like our first EP here coming out in May, and like I was really happy with them clearly, and then we just love the way we sound together. I think like our creative chemistry is really unique, and that was pretty evident pretty quickly. So we were just like. Let's just start throwing everything we can at this, and trying to book shows and practice.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like you kind of got your first demos done pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And that's impressive, because I know I've been in and around bands where it's like you work together for 6 months and there's still nothing finished. So that's really impressive, and it sounds natural.
It is,
And then, how long until you started like booking shows?
We had like met, I want to say it was like March. That was when Chase and I first got together, and like I had shown some of my writing, and we I think it was a bit later that we all got together and jammed for the first time, and then we had our first show in July 27th last year. And
How many months? You said March?
yeah, so
Or June, July?
March, April, May, June, wait,
March? Skip to me.
June. Like 4 months, something like that.
Dang.
We were 4 months. Yeah, it was it was nice. We threw a big birth bash for me and my guitarist Chase's roommate's birthday because we have a pretty similar birthday.
Nice.
Mine was on the 28th, so it was that midnight. We're still all at the birthday bash. And we had just played our first show, and like I just turned 27, and I was like, this is the best birthday of my life.
Yeah.
It went really well. The turnout was amazing, like between all of our friends and everything. And our first venue gig was at Ziggy's here in Ypsilanti. Wesley was like, I love Ziggy's. That was some months later, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So for people who have never been in a band or performed at a venue before, what is the process like for you getting booked?
Getting booked, I think like that's gonna depend so vastly on like the music scene where you're at. I'm really fortunate. I've been crazy fortunate being in Lost Life with like the musicians that we have. Like my drummer Andrew was very connected with like the bookers in the scene here beforehand. But that said, the bookers here are very reachable, very human. Like you tell them like, hey, my band, we're trying to book our first show, yada yada. They'll be like, okay, I'll put you on a Wednesday. Like Wednesdays are the like. People come, if it looks like a cool show, you just got to bring people in, and like if you treat the crowds right, if the bookers like you, like you'll just kind of keep getting more shows. And I that's one thing I love about Ypsilanti is the bookers here very much are part of the community that I see so regularly, and like the camaraderie is very much there. They very much want to see younger, newer, like, just starting out artists get their opportunity, to like make a name for themselves. And that's one of the most beautiful things about this community, is like bands like Loss of Life can get a crazy kickoff,
Yeah.
because there's a scene for everything here, and the bookers here love it. They want to see it, they book things like Freak Fest, like a multi-day festival with everything from like clowncore jazz, to like doom metal in the park,
Right.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Does your photography and your music and writing tie together?
My writing and the music are at, they're very much one at this point. That's been how my relationship with writing has basically gotten with like being in the band and everything. Is like, just trying to stay on like a writing schedule, because we're always trying to work on new stuff. But with photography, yeah, I would like to deepen that connection. Our most recent single we put out, I'm brain fried today, so I can't think of any dates or anything like that right now. But our most recent single we put out, Exempted, it's called. I did the art for that, like the photo of like the flowers with the black and white background. Or I took that in Eastern Texas, like in 2019 or something like that.
Nice.
Yeah. But outside of that,
Right. So you said, did you have a show coming up at the Blind Pig?
Yeah, May 16th, we're doing our EP release show. We'll be releasing our EP, Heavy Burdens. We've got a really cool lineup. It's going to be fun. I got a couple Detroit acts. It's going to be a good, heavy show. If you don't know Dolly Rott, a beloved Ann Arbor artist, it's going to open up the night, set the somber tone. We're very excited.
That's awesome. Can you say that's your first EP?
That's our first EP, yeah. We've only got a couple singles out right now off the EP. It's going to be a 5-track though, so we'll have 3 new ones out May 16th. It's going to be fun.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Do you have plans for after that you're working on?
After that, we've got like a good handful of shows kind of booked already through to, I want to say, like the latest one we have. Well, this isn't like set in stone, but like August, but for sure July. Yeah, we'll be doing.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. We got a good handful of shows, and like we want to get a handful of newer things that we've written, like recorded. We're gonna try recording this stuff in house, doing it ourselves. For the new stuff, we went to Zeros and One Studios in Hamtramck to do our EP release. And the studio technician there, Kylie Miller, absolute genius. Love him for taking the time. Like, has really made all of these singles, like all 5 of these tracks, his baby since the beginning. Been very good to us. Yeah, I'm really excited for everybody to hear it. But that said, we kind of want to be able to slow down the process, and really, which is a lot to say, because so much time goes into it. But we want to be able to slow down the process and be a lot more intentional with like recording every aspect of it. When you go into studios, it's kind of like, there's a timer. There's so much time. You got to go and drive out there, to the place, and then you're in there for set amount of hours, and it's like, okay, you got to go and do this. Oh, you want to do a redo? Okay, you want to do a redo? For me, with my body being my instrument, and just being in there like screaming for hours, it's like recording an album's like, or recording an EP even, I can't imagine recording an album in like one go, like we did
Right.
in one go, like.
Yeah, 'cause I know that like screaming vocalization is pretty heavy on your vocal cords too.
It is, yeah.
You really gotta take care of yourself. It's a physical instrument. But yeah, and I feel like too, like, I don't know, I think it's always great to come at your art, come at your medium from different angles with different constraints, because I do feel like working in a studio, that is its own kind of situation that you're coming at your music with.
Right.
So I would bet that, having that experience would give you even more of a full understanding of your process and working on it. Like, that's, for me, I feel like I've tried doing all kinds of different things artistically and whatever, and like, even though there's a lot of paths that I went down artistically that I did not keep going down,
Right.
it totally informs everything else that I'm doing artistically.
Absolutely.
And I feel like if you don't go down those different paths, you're not really going to be able to figure out how you work back.
I agree. Yeah, I'm very much I will very much fixate on the thoughts of like how I have possibly ended up here, and it's because of all these little things. And I agree. Yeah, all of your experiences as an artist or just as a human, because what is art but an expression of our human experience, Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do for work outside of your creative expression?
Right now, I've worked in a lot of industries, but I've been trapped in this maintenance position in residential in Ann Arbor for like the past few years. And I think it really influences like who I am as an artist nowadays, like my relationship out with kind of everything outside of like performance and all and recording and everything. I have this job. I've been looking for a new one for like a long time. I think that I am very much like I have a really common story right now. The job market's really trash. Everything's kind of falling apart in the nation. So I'm like I feel like I'm kind of, the music I'm creating right now is just an echo of it, and I walk the talk that I get up there and do on stage, because, I wake up at the crack of dawn every day and go to feed the machine, and I'm very much a victim of like, the machine that like I'm getting up there and writing music and screaming about, because our music is really political in a lot of sense, Yeah, so I work in maintenance, and I hate my job, and I hate most of the people around at my job, you know, and like I've been looking for a while. I think my dream jobs would be like, I would love like Monday through Friday if I have to continue to prop up capitalism. I would love to work as a barista in the mornings and be like a bartender at night.
Oh.
And then I know that these are the money days. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday, leave me alone.
Right.
Leave me alone. It's not me.
Right.
I'm not your gal.
Right. So you're saying dream job, barista or bartender.
Right. Dream, dream job aside from like unemployment. But
Right. And I know you said before that you didn't enjoy monetizing your photography.
yeah.
Would you monetize your music and writing if you could? Would that be your dream job?
So that's the thing, like, I think like photography very much made me feel like I don't want to monetize my arts anymore because it very much saps the romantic aspects out of your art, like the parts of it that don't feel like forced, and yeah, that's been the main thing, with like Loss of Life is like after we did our first few shows, like we had like a come to moment, where our drummer who had been doing this for a living for the longest time, he said, all right guys, like I just want to put this out there, like I think that we can do big things with this band, and like we all agree with it, I mean I think we're all very different like artistically, but it creates this really unique chemistry, that gives us this really cool sound, like this whole MySpace era, like Scrams core thing that we do, like it wasn't like intentional. It's what we kind of happened upon, with our creative chemistry and everything. And we love the way it sounds, and like we put on a hell of a show, and we really think we can go far with it, So Loss of Life for me is like very much a monetization thing, we do kind of like have to think of it more business oriented and ways than we would like a fun passion project. And that's tough for me sometimes, this being like my first band, and like you get in your first band and you really kind of like dive into like having an outlet for music and everything.
Yeah.
You want to scream about things you want to scream about, and they become very personal to you, and like it's difficult to really pour so much of yourself into a project that has like 4 moving parts, and like when it's really monetization focused, it's been a new experience for me for sure.
Right. So what kind of more like tangibly, what kind of things are you taking into consideration to make it monetizable that you wouldn't be taking into consideration otherwise?
I think like with a fun-minded like project, with a project that is like purely focused on like our local fame, and like are just having a good time and putting on fun shows, like you will drive out to like a show, to like a basement show in a different town, you've never been to or anything, just because like we've never played there before, and you're not worried about things like how many people are going to be there, and do you know the other bands there, but like that's not how you have like fun, like I think when you're in a fun band you're like doing a lot more things just for the experience of it,
right,
as opposed to like what can we gain in terms of like notoriety, or like how much money is it going to pay, like everything's very much focused on like how many people are going to see this and how much money will it net you,
right,
yeah. I like to kind of think outside of that, I think sometimes, so yeah, I'm definitely always keeping my eye open for like side projects, just to goof off with,
right. Well, I think that also it brings to mind, I feel like marketing is one of the trickiest things for artists who want to do their art full time. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
in the age of TikTok and
oh god. Yeah, I mean, I know just taking into consideration like how many people are actually going to see us at the show. That's like one little first step of marketing. Do you do anything else?
yeah, it's like how many people are gonna see you at the show, right? It's like you book shows at venues like Blind Pig, because it can really hold a lot of people, and you got bands that might bring a lot of people, and you really hope, just to like be able to pack sell all those tickets, hopefully sell merch, yada yada, and outside of that, it's like we need to make sure that there's like these photographers, these videographers there, because we need like all of this crap to post, it's all about content now.
Yes,
exactly.
Content.
And when you have a show, and it's like one of this last show we put on, I think was like the best show, like the best performance that we've put on, and but there was no photographers or videographers there. It's like it doesn't exist online. So did it really happen?
Oh.
And that's not where I exist, in my mind. Like I love that show. I love like the turnout that was there, was like so supportive, and they all remember how sick that shit was.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Do you guys sell merch?
We do, yeah. We sell a lot of merch whenever it's really, it's another big thing. It's one of the many big things you got to keep up on top of. We've changed our process quite a bit.
You make your own merch?
We made our own merch exclusively for a while there. It was like I came across so many like. The kids in these buildings I work in, they're weird, the stuff they throw away. They'll throw away like Amazon packages with like 8 packs of like really nice unopened like t-shirt blanks and stuff.
Oh wow.
Like, okay, whatever. Yeah. Like art students or something, like these aren't the ones I ordered. Throw them in the trash chute, whatever.
Dang.
I know, it's crazy. So
I had very resourceful.
It was also very sustainable for us at that time, because I had a lot of like high quality like brand, like new t-shirt blanks and everything. We just wood print and made all of our own stuff, and it sold out, and we've had to just kind of continually think, all right, we need to find like a sustainable way to get a bunch of merch, so we don't have to think about it for a while, because I'm sick of thinking about making new merch and finding blanks for it and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah, seriously, I feel like you should make music. I turn my back. I'm like,
right.
All right.
Yeah, we gotta. Yeah, I only have.
That's awesome.
What's the only thing I have? I don't even have a t-shirt. This is whack. We got loads of t-shirts out there, but I only got my Loss of Life lighter.
That's awesome.
It's my favorite.
Nice.
When I was a kid, I was like, I want a band, and I want a band lighter.
Oh yeah, you got it.
I got
it.
Yeah, heck yeah.
All right. I do want to start. Ooh, it was a good time. Good time. I do want to start.
Yeah.
I want to start wrapping it up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you already let us know, like, stuff that's coming out recently. You said it was May 16th.
May
At the
16th.
Blind Pig.
Yeah, May 16th. That's
exciting.
the release show. Album should be. Bleh, I keep saying album. The EP should be live at like 8 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
May 16th, Eastern Standard Time.
All right.
Run it up.
Yeah, and I mean, you can say it for the camera. I'll put it all in the description too. But like, where can people find you?
You can find me personally. What is my current Instagram? I'm always renaming my stuff because I'm kind of a dork. It's xqueen _ darkness. X Queen of Darkness.
Yes, perfect.
That's my personal, and the band is Loss of Life Band.
And do you upload your stuff to streaming platforms?
Yeah, our music is available on all the streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, all that, Bandcamp. My work, as far as my photography, I realized recently that like I have all this new community, and like none of them have seen my photography, but I have a photography account. Just DM me and I'll But yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then, do you have any like short-term, like upcoming goals for you personally as an artist, as a creative, like something you want to overcome or look at? For your creative process, anything like that?
Yeah, I think so. I think I really want to find like a side project where I can kind of express myself musically, and I'm more accustomed to like a bit heavier music, you know, and that I want to get like a heavier side project going, like some kind of brutal blackened metal type dealio, and I want to use that to kind of explore some things I'm grieving at this point in time in my life, and you know, I got some goals, you know, some concept albums I'd like to work on, stuff like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, this was really fun for me. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on.
Absolutely, of course. Yeah, it's good seeing you again.
Awesome, likewise.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.